Welcome an exceptional academic painter Matej Metlikovič, whose artworks are kept in numerous collections around Slovenia, Croatia, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, Spain, and Canada. Matej earned his bachelor's degree in 1978 at the Academy of Fine Arts Ljubljana under professors Štefan Planinc and Milan Butina, and completed his master's degree under Kiar, Meško, and Janez Bernik in 1981. Since he completed his studies, Matej continually worked, exhibited, and participated in national and international exhibitions, artworks, and symposiums. From 1981 to 1992, he taught art at the Secondary School of Chemistry and Secondary Music and Ballet School in Ljubljana. He has been a freelance artist since 1992. Matej Metlikovič, thank you very much for joining me today, and welcome to the ASEF podcast. How are you? How did you start the new year?
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this discussion. I'm well. I started the new year fine, thanks. Christmas and New Year time was concentrated around my family, friends, grandchildren. We did some walking tours in nature. Besides this, we do some renovation work in our flat, and also in my studio. I have to do some work so that I will be able to continue my painting creativity.
So you filled your batteries and prepare everything that you can just start your creative process now.
Yes.
That's great. So I think that after this beginning, we can start also with your artistic beginnings. Can you just tell us a little bit where did the path lead you after finishing the art academy? And I'm quite curious about how you young artists started your career. Did you have many opportunities to exhibit independently? And what is, in your opinion, the path of a young artist after the academy?
After I graduated at academy, I had a possibility to continue postgraduate study for 2 years as a master degree. For these 2 years, I got a scholarship from the state institution, and in 1979, I had my first solo exhibition in the city gallery of my native town, Kranj. In that time, it was usual that the gallery bought a work of an artist who exhibits there, or just pay him a fee equal to the monthly salary of an employee in culture. So that's how I sold my first large canvas in the gallery in my native town, Kranj. And all across Slovenia, there were and still are galleries founded by the state or cities. And in my youth, there were possibilities for young artists to show their work. But this was not enough to survive, to live of art. And the problem was and still is in Slovenia that the art market is not so strong. Gallerists usually don't invest in artists. They just sell their works and pay them after the work is sold. After 1981, after I completed my studies at academy, I knew I will not be able to earn enough money for living with my art. So I decided to take a job of a teacher for art education in grammar school. But this was also my interest because I love to think about art. I like to discuss about art with people. So it was for me an experiment, let's say, also how to speak about art to young people around 15 years old, how to create together with them, how to inspire them. And I also liked very much to get feedback from them. I took them to different galleries in Ljubljana, mostly in Ljubljana. I showed them important buildings in Ljubljana, but we also did some excursions to different places in Slovenia and also into Austria, in Carinthia. So we had a lot of possibility to discuss about art, importance of art in our history and also today. We also had a special art club for some pupils who had interest to create more than others. So this was for me a good experience. Yeah, you are asking about the path of a young artist after academy, something I told you before. And important thing in the life of a young artist is not only to learn about different artists, to learn how to paint, to learn different techniques of painting, but also to learn something or everything or many things about himself. Who am I? What are my emotions? What are my visions? You must find your own way. You must not just create in the shadow of great painters of contemporary or past centuries. So for me, this was also important school that after academy, I married. I got my first daughter. And living in a family was, in relation to my wife, of course, was a special school of my personal life. And out of these experiences and discussions and enjoying art together, also grew my special way of artistic expression.
It's very interesting thoughts you shared with us, especially about I think how essential it is to have a teacher or someone you can talk with him or her about art, about your thoughts, about your feelings. So I think that it was a very good start for you, as you started as a teacher and then you gradually built your career through your relationship with your family and then with the different artists. So I think it's a very good start, and every artist or probably every young person would like to have this experience at the beginning and then gradually build a career. Anyway, before we started this conversation today, you mentioned the words of the conceptual artist and sculptor Marko Pogačnik. I quote, "The art of life, the life of art." Can you explain to us a little more in what sense Pogačnik's words inspire you? How do you experience art?
Yes, this is my special story because Marko Pogačnik comes from the same little town or village near Kranj as me, and I saw him when I was a child, and he had a very special appearance because he was first hippie in my native town, and all people say he's crazy, but for me, I don't know, I felt something near to him. I felt I would like to be like him. And then when I came to know that he is an artist, I said, oh, I would like to be an artist like him, for example. But I was drawing all my youth from a very early childhood. But when I became, let's say, around 15 years, 16 years old, it was important for me that I saw people who are artists. I had very good teacher in school, Vinko Tušek, and then it was Marko Pogačnik with his special way of life. And beside his art, for me, it was very interesting that he had special style of life, because after some years of very successful years of exhibition in different galleries, also in MoMA in New York, where he showed, and his friends from the group OHO showed their works in the World Exhibition of Conceptual Art, he and his friends stopped to exhibit in galleries because they thought they found out that this art business will not allow them to live their personal lives. So they decided to stop for a while this living with galleries and exhibitions, and started a special way of life in the commune of artists. In that time, around 1970, it was in a way fashion in America, in the West Europe, these communes of artists who lived a kind of alternative life. And for me as a young man, this all was very inspiring. But what I got out of this was that to create good art or beautiful art, you must try to live a beautiful life beautiful personal life, and that art is not divided from artist's life. So this for me was an important impression, and that also everyday life can become art also, because beauty is present not only in galleries or in ateliers, studios of artists, but also in everyday life, in family, with friends, with children. And so this complexity of life and art is very well expressed in Marko Pogačnik's title, "The Life of Art is Art of Life." So this connection, and if we look at many different artists of history, we always see that the way of developing their art was always connected with their life, story of their life, with ups and downs, with all drama and hope and faith and beauty. I think this is important also for young artists to find this complexity of life and try to express this in art. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I think it's also good to find a balance, right? Between
the balance, yes.
work and then the life, family life, and the things that you are doing, the things you enjoy. So your artworks span from the intimate vignettes and illustrations. You paint in acrylic, on canvas and paper, and you do ink drawings, and also you paint on wood. Your cycle miniature images titled Icons of Love are painted on wood in spontaneous moments of pure creative inspiration and authentic emotional experience, with playful use of colors and the dynamic dancing strokes of a paintbrush. These images on wood expresses your love for Orthodox icons, right? Can you tell us where this love comes from?
Yeah, Orthodox icons I knew from my youth. I suppose my father, who was very the person who loved art, he always liked to show me some works of art, and he especially liked sacred art. And so I think it was him who first showed me these icons, and later I met them in different places, in museums, and at the end, not at the end, in one point of my life, I met a very good friend, Venko Cvetko from Skopje, who studied painting in Ljubljana. But after this, he returned back to Macedonia, where he studied also painting frescoes in Orthodox churches and also icons on wood. These icons, for me, are sacred objects, sacred art objects, which are created to like spiritual messages from artists to people. This spiritual aspect of art was very near to Vasily Kandinsky, who wrote his famous text about spiritual in art. And also Kandinsky inspired me very much. And icons had very great influences in his art too. Also were important for the beginning of abstract art, also at Malevich art. For me, artistic work of art is not only aesthetic object or object of, I don't know, critic of society or message of some propaganda of something or protest, but it's something very personal and inner. It comes from inside. Besides icons, I love very much mosaics, which I think first saw in Venice in this cathedral of San Mark. So this kind of gold, glorious, transcendental images from icons to great mosaics are very deep inspiration in me. And with my works, in my icons, I also used the contemporary view of icon, which is more profane and which means a condensed symbol or sign with a clear message. So on my icons of love, I tried to mix or intertwine two aspects: a sacred image of Orthodox or of East Christianity and contemporary messages, signs of love. And the idea for these icons of life, these are small images on wood, I got at marriage, at the wedding of my younger daughter. I painted, I think, 40 of them for the guests of this wedding. And while they were so enthusiastic about these gifts for them, I got idea to paint more such icons. And so after this wedding, it was 10 years ago, on every of my exhibition, I show also a cycle of such icons. And also people like to buy them as presents to some dear person, presents for special events in their life. And this is my communication of love, with which I help people to show their emotions to each other.
It is, I agree, it is a very beautiful present that you can give to someone. I saw on your website that you get it in a very nice box, this icon, and then you can buy it as a gift, like you said. So I think it's a nice gesture. So if we go a little bit further through your artistic process, what excites me the most in your art process is your work with glass, especially the large-scale stained glass windows, which are created in the medium of fused-colored glass combined with the linear painting. I believe that among all of your art creations, these works are the most spiritual and have a very special impact on the viewer. Can you tell us more about your work process with glass and when in your career you decided to use glass as a medium of your art? How do you see the glass as a material? And as an artist, how does this material appeal to you?
I remember well that my first encounter with art of stained glass windows was in my native town, Kran, where there is an old Gothic parish church and is decorated with modern stained glass windows, which were designed by Stane Kregar, famous Slovenian modern painter. I think it was again my father who showed me these windows when I was a child. But later, when I grew, when I was a student in grammar school in Kran, sometimes in my free time, I went to the church and meditate these windows. In a special way, these windows reminded me to the music of Pink Floyd, which I was listening in that time. I liked the special sound of this music, which was electronic and very cosmic and spiritual in some moments. A lot of longing, a lot of dreaming, a lot of fantasy, and somehow this psychedelic music and stained glass windows and the light shows of Pink Floyd, somehow I felt it is something which go very good together, which evoke my special emotions in me. And as I was always drawing and creating, I said, "Oh, how I would like to create windows. This would be very good for me." And I'm very grateful that in 1990 I got a commission, my first commission to design and create stained glass windows for a small Slovenian church. Between this, first was I forgot to tell that after meeting Stane Kregar's windows in Kran, I was very inspired also by the windows of Marc Chagall in Zurich, which I saw in the time of my study in academy, because during the summer holidays I was hitchhiking across Europe, visiting museums and churches. And in 1980, my wife and me, we visited Paris, where we saw magnificent windows in Notre Dame and in Sainte-Chapelle. And so in that time, I think my love for windows and for my way of artistic expression reached the special point. Because in the time of academy study, I was very impressed by abstract art, maybe this American abstract art from Jackson Pollock to de Kooning. And my diploma work was concentrated about abstract art. But in Paris, while meeting Chagall and Paris church windows, I saw a special combination of great abstract compositions of colors and small details of faces, figures of human figures, animals, plants. And so this tension between figurative and abstract, I think I found in that moment that this will be my way. Not only abstract, not only figurative, but just this complex mixture, or I don't know, tension between both of them, trying to make equilibrium of both. Because I think we as human beings live in a very huge cosmic place which we don't see and understand, and we can just feel the mystery of life around us, between us, and I think abstract art very good express this mystery. This is what we do not understand but feel. And now let's go to the glass, as you asked me. Yeah, glass is a really very special material. If you compare it to the canvas or to the wood or to acrylic paints, the glass is a transparent material. You can see through. It is heavy, it is solid, but you can see through it. You can see what is inside it. You can see bubbles of air inside the glass. So this material is really ideal for expressing spiritual moods and visions. In a way, it reminds also to music, which surrounds us. And of course, the stained glass windows, when the sun is shining through them, or light, they fill the space with colors and with special atmosphere, almost like music. So because I like music very much, I think the glass is really the most beautiful material to express the musical emotions, musical feelings through this material. Let me maybe begin. You asked me about techniques. The first technique which I used for my glass windows was a Tiffany technique, which is a classical technique of works of compositions in glass. The artist make design, and after this design, the master, in my case it was Stojan Višnar, the glassmeister, master of glass work, of glass design, he cut pieces of glass after my design, and then on these pieces I also paint some details, maybe face or hand or bird or just some abstract lines, and then these pieces of glass go to the furnace where the drawing is burnt, and after this this master fixed together different pieces of glass into one whole with in a mechanic way. He joined together with LED connections. So the whole composition is you got like a raster of these LED connections, and this for me was not so beautiful for my way of thinking and creating, but I did it in this way. But later we developed together the technique which is called fused glass. My master studied this technique in Netherlands, and he did some studies for me so that I saw how it is. In fusing technique, you again cut pieces of glass in different colors, and then you put these pieces one beside other and one over other. So we did kind of puzzles in 5 layers of glass. So at the end, and then all these pieces go to the furnace where these pieces burn together and melt into one piece, which is made of many colors. So there is no this structure of LED connections, and this I liked much more. And so I used to add to these color compositions in glass. I like to add the black lines, black painting, with which I just sign some symbols, faces, hands, birds, and also I make a special structure over the color composition in the background. This glass, which is heavy and thick, around almost 1.5 centimeters, gives a special material quality, because usually glass is 3 millimeters thick, or 4, and looks like aquarelle sometimes. But this one is more heavy, and if you put 3 levels or 4 levels of red color, this red color is really very red color. It sounds much more deep than just if it will be only one level. So I did some experiment in this way, and also I mixed colors. You put maybe green color over blue color and you get turquoise, and these are many possibilities, but you have to be very precise, because you must not make mistake, or master must not make a mistake. So if he mixed 2 not right colors, then you get maybe you get brown or dirty or gray. So yeah, it takes a lot of concentration for creating this images in glass.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you answered my questions, and I think it follows my next question. Is kind of connected to that introduction, I would say, because one of your central artworks is the composition of stained glass windows, 8 large and 1 in the central smaller, in the chapel of the Anton Martin Slumšek Institute in Maribor, which is entitled The Tree of Life, The Tree of Love, which you created in the period from 2009 to 2011. And you mentioned mixing colors. So here, rainbow light stained glass has an extremely mystical and transcendental effect on the viewer. At first glance, we can get lost in this colored light, but then one gradually begins to notice the figurative depiction you also mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit more about your work process for this particular artwork? And how were glass windows created? Did you draw on them afterwards? And why this color palette?
I was invited to create this composition for the chapel in Maribor by a priest who founded this institution of Anton Martin Slomšek, Ivan Štuhec. And his idea was that he would like to have a vision of the tree of life in this chapel. And in that time of our discussion, the encyclic of Pope Benedict came out on the theme of love. And so we got idea that the tree of life should be also a tree of love, and that images on these windows should represent different aspects of human and divine love. And my idea was also this tree of life must be like burning bush from the story of Moses, when he met God in the vision of burning bush. And this bush is burning and never burn to the end. It's burning and burning. And also this is a symbol of love. So the colors which I choose for these windows, I think they should represent love, which is the most strong power in human soul. And the Song of Songs in the Bible says that love is like fire. And so I took very colors of fire, of strong colors. This was a basic inspiration for my colors. The interesting is that in the Apocalypse, in Revelation, this book speaks about rainbow, which surrounds God's throne. And this rainbow looks like an emerald, looks like a sea of glass, like crystal. And so in the Bible, they wrote about stained glass windows, even if in that time they didn't have them, as we know. As I think the stained glass windows came out only in the Middle Ages. But of course, when they created first stained glass windows, they were thinking about the visions from Revelation, from the Bible. So this was my basic vision of colors. And of course, when I did my first studies, I found inspiration in the Song of Songs, which is a really basic text for theology of love. And in this Song of Songs, there is a constant dialogue between woman and man, bridegroom and bride. And so also my windows, which are one beside other, they also create some dialogue between one picture to another picture. It's also in the way of dialogue. I made 3 triptychs. In the center there is a triptych of 2 big like wing-like forms of windows, and one central which is smaller and circle in the form of circle. In this central window, I made an image of man and woman faces, which are connected with a kiss. And somehow later I got idea it can be a kind of allusion to famous Michelangelo fresco when God and man touch each other with fingers. And in my case, it is a kiss. I think it's even more deep connection between man and God, man and divine. And this kiss is surrounded by big windows, which are very abstract, because I want to show the transcendent divine love, which we cannot depict in some figurative forms. I see these windows like an ocean with waves and ice, and very mysterious. On the left and on the right of this central triptych, we have on the left is triptych of Old Testament, and on the right side triptych of New Testament. And there are visions on the left side. The triptych starts with King David playing a harp. This is a famous image in Christian art in many centuries. I love very much, for example, Chagall's depictions of King David. And while creating this David with a harp, I was listening to Leonard Cohen's famous Alleluia, where he sings about David playing a secret chord, and this was a kind of my homage to this song. But also I was thinking about another David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, and his famous guitar solos. So my image of King David is homage to Leonard Cohen and David Gilmour, my favorite contemporary musicians, poets. So in every picture which I do, I also include my emotions, my visions, which I have in my daily life, listening music, meeting people. So I see also, even if I do a sacred work for a sacred space, I feel it like a kind of diary of my what happens to my soul and my heart. So after David, there is a vision image of young lovers, man and girl, and young man and girl or young woman. I say to this picture like spring of love, and the next one I say the summer of love, because they are embraced together in one embrace, or in red and blue colors. So these are 2 images taken from Song of Songs. Here the erotic love between man and woman is stressed. And also in this encyclic which I mentioned of Pope Benedict, he writes about the equilibrium of erotic love and this empathic love, or agape in Greek. So he stressed that all aspects of love are in a way equal and must be in equilibrium. You must ethic and aesthetic and erotic must be in some balance and inspiration one to each other. On the right side there are 3 images in the triptych. First is the Sermon on the Mount, where I painted a vision of Christ who speaks with power, with inner power. The next one is Christ meeting the woman from Samaria, Samaritan woman at the well. And here I painted the vision of love as empathic love, because Jesus didn't want to show he's greater than this woman. He was speaking with her like in a normal way, and he was understanding her situation. And the next, the last painting shows the motif of mother and child, Virgin Mary with child Jesus, and this is the maternal love, or love of a child to his mother. So we have, from the left to the right, we have different aspects of love, from the love of artists who creates from his heart to the love of mother and child. After I mentioned my favorite musicians, I would like to add another one, which is also very important for my art. This was Olivier Messiaen, a French composer, avant-garde composer who created many works dedicated to sacred themes. So while creating this large composition of 9 stained glass windows, one of important inspirations was also his organ music, in which he tried to express the beauty of stained glass windows. He lived in Paris and he admired the medieval stained glass windows, and he always claimed that when he writes music, he sees the music in colors, and that he in fact create music like he would create stained glass windows, that he has always stained glass windows in front of his eyes. And so for me, it was interesting that while I listened to his music and created my compositions, I thought, okay, I'm translating his music into stained glass windows. And besides this emotional and spiritual levels of artistic creation, also the practical view is important. I told before about how we melt and fuse the pieces of glass, and here in Maribor we did in the same way. So after I got from the furnace these pieces of just color compositions, I continue the work with painting lines, and with lines I paint figures. These figures, of course, must be in special relationship to the forms and colors of glass. So this was a kind of dialogue or dance between my brush stroke and the colors which were on the surface of glass. Again, a special experience. I did this in my studio. I put the pieces, these big, large pieces of glass, I put on some wooden things. Below, I put lights, and so I was painting black lines directly like I would paint on a light itself. Special experience. And this such painted glass must then go again to the furnace where the lines are burnt, and in that way these impermanent lines are forever embedded on the glass surface. Then these glass pieces were fixed into a special metal frames, and it was really a special experience when in the beginning you saw only the hole of the window, and when step by step we put the window in front of this hole in the wall, it was really something which I cannot explain. It was special fascination.
Thank you very much for this detailed journey through this magnificent work. But I believe that it is important to see your glass windows in person, right?
Yes.
When you go there, you can get this real feeling and the whole inspiration through the colors and the symbolic from your paintings.
Yes, because the room, the experience of the room and the materiality of these windows is very important, because when you see it in the computer or in photo, it's not the same. It's just information, but just this sound, as Kandinsky would say, sound of colors and material of glass, this together, not only colors, not only light, but also glass as material. This experience is really important.
Exactly. So here we invite our listeners, if they are ever in Maribor, to go there and see your stained glass windows.
Yes, this is possible. Yes.
Yeah. So now we can move to your another work. I should mention that this is not an isolated example of stained glass windows by you, that you're extremely prolific, and we have many of your glass artworks in Slovenian churches and one also in Germany. If I mention only one, an extremely complex works, which I really like, is the large glass work Spring of Grace, created for the underground chapel of the John the Baptist home Ljubljana in Trnovo. In other words, this project could be called the modern underground art, I would say, of the catacombs. The chapel came to life in a special way with the help of your colored glass painting, or shall we say painting sculpture in the space, as well as with the help of work of the architect Tomasz Mlinarić. Can you maybe briefly describe this project?
Yes, the large work painting in glass is the central work in the underground chapel, and this is not a classic stained glass window because it is not fixed in front of the window opening and does not transmit outside light into the room, but is a monumental image made of melted and fused colored glass that floats in front of the altar wall. It is fixed on the wall, and the light comes to the chapel from above because the chapel is underground, underground chapel, and the light comes from above this window, and this is really something special that you can feel my work in glass. Not a little bit, it looks like window, but it's not window. It's a painting in glass, so it has both elements. It reminds to the window, but it is also painting because, as I say, light is not coming from the background of the glass. So it is in a way like a sculpture, very flat, but it is in the space, is fixed in front of the wall. With its round shape, color, and lighting effects, the whole composition reminds to the sun disk, which floats above the altar, and also symbolically indicates the Eucharistic bread, the host, which is enlightened by the light coming from above. So it is in a way can be explained also in theological way. The composition of colors on this circular painting is like a vivid tapestry, and on this foundation of color composition, I drew with black lines again motifs of fish, birds, men in prayer and longing, angels, God's heart, hand, and eye. These iconographic symbols originate from ancient Christian art, but on this stained glass painting, they are executed in a modernistic, minimalistic way, in the spirit of art of our time. I'm very glad and grateful that I had very good collaborator in this project, the architect Tomasz Mlinarić, who is the husband of my younger daughter. He created the architectural space of the presbytery with the altar, the ambo, and the tabernacle, necessary elements that provide the beautiful framework for my large glasswork image and for two smaller ones as well. So in this chapel, I think my painting went a step outside of painting, in direction of sculpture and in direction of architecture, of course with the help of the architect. But I like this transcending one type of art. I like that the one art goes in the dialogue to the other one, and so here I think it's really good example of this approach. Maybe interesting for this composition is that on this circular composition, there is not depicted one motif, but there are many motifs, one beside the other. It's like in the poetry, when you read the line after line after line, and at the end you can feel a special feeling of all lines together. So this is also very near to me because I love poetry, and I like to meditate each line. Sometimes I read the poem and maybe I don't understand the poem well, and I don't know what the artist meant with it, but sometimes I find just one line and said, oh, it resounds in me. So in the same way I did this work. So you can go from image to image, and maybe it resounds in you some emotion, some vision. And maybe I would add to this, because these images I said are like lines in the poem, and this many lines of the composition remind me also to the famous vision of Jacob's ladder from Old Testament, in which the story tells how Jacob saw this vision of ladder from earth to heaven, and that he saw angels coming from God's throne down to earth and back to God again. And so also this composition is in a way like a Jacob's ladder. With maybe at the end, I want to say that with my art, I do not want to create narrative biblical illustrations, but I understand this more in poetic way. My images should evoke a dream vision, a mystical vision, and not a figurative illustration. Because if we speak about spiritual art, this is art who tells us about things we do not know or or see, we just believe or somehow feel. And so when if an artist do it in a very illustrative way, which is very often present in Catholic churches, this is not more for me, not any more religious art or sacred art, because if you see it very concrete, all the figures, all the stories, then you have your fantasy, your spirit has nothing to do anymore. You just look, and I don't know. I think the sacred art should open the windows of your soul, of your heart, and to give you place to interpret by yourself, like poetry.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's good to give you, like you mentioned, that space to be able to meditate, to think about your life, yourself, and not just giving you some images which are telling the story, which I think it's very good and important, but it's good to have this aspect as well. And if I connect with my another question, is exactly that sense of thoughtfulness, calmness, mysticism we talked about, or spirituality. And your pictures feel the atmosphere and are like a kaleidoscope of colors that evoke feelings of this mysticism in the viewer. And in many of your works, the main role is played by the simple but very powerful line you talked about, and you combine these abstract compositions of color combinations with this suggestive symbolic drawing. Mostly birds. I saw a lot of your pictures with birds, but maybe I am wrong. You can tell more about that. But I am curious, what is your main inspiration here? Why did you decide to add this drawing to your abstract painting?
As I told you before, my main inspiration is music and poetry, because when I was younger, when I was a child, I loved very much to draw stories of adventures of for example, Indians and cowboys, and discovering America. These adventures really I was fascinated by this, and I also did many comics in this way. But when I was 14, 15, I was very influenced by the music of that time. It was the Beatles, of course, because I grew with them. I was child when they were in the top of their career, and I remember very well when they finished their collaboration in 1970, I think. So I was following also the music of the time. It was Jimi Hendrix, whom I love. Later I discovered Pink Floyd. But besides this, I was also very fascinated by TV shows or emissions of Leonard Bernstein, who had his matinees for young people in New York. And he was it was, I think, every Sunday on the TV, and I was watching this with great interest. And I was, I think, 14, 15 years old. And he explained and showed many different arts of music, from Bach to Mozart and to Berlioz and to jazz to Gershwin. He also spoke about Beatles, and all this also very inspired me. So I think the interest for music opened my mind, so that I left my adventures of Indians and cowboys and these stories, and I became aware of presence of art around me. And one of important influence was also the envelopes of long play records, which I was ordering directly from England. It was very good designed records. For example, Pink Floyd is with this famous triangle and rainbow. And so when I was 16, I was invited by a group of young poets and thinkers of our grammar school. They founded kind of magazine for literature and art, and they invited me because they know that I like to draw, create, to make a design, to make illustrations and design all work of design for this magazine. And so I think this was my first. In this magazine, I showed to the public my first works with artistic this ambition, that it is not illustration of a story or comics, but it should be more poetic works, poetic compositions. So I think just it was influence of music of which I listened in that time, with influence of pop art, which was around me in that time. I did my first creations with artistic ambitions. So I think it was music and poetry was the most strong influence. Beside painters, which I loved. For example, I mentioned Stane Kregar, and later I met in the time of my study. During my study in grammar school, I often visited galleries. We had 2 galleries in Kran where they showed contemporary works. I got a lot of impressions of what contemporary art looks like. Beside this, I was also getting many informations about Marko Pogačnik and his alternative approach to art, with which he tried to create not only art for galleries, but more art which would serve in a way a life, so which would be more connected with people, not just in galleries, but also out the galleries.
So if we move now a little bit to, let's say, a general question. I'm always very interested how artists, I don't know, the fear of an empty canvas. So I'm interested, how do you start your creative process where you have a empty canvas, or in your example, you also have a paper or wood in front of you. How do you communicate with it? So how do you start, to place colors or lines on it?
Yeah, it depends on the project, but the first step is improvisation, brainstorming. When I create in more spontaneous way, when the work is not connected to some commission, I start first just with playing with colors in different techniques: dripping, pouring, applying colors with a brush, painter's spatula or painter's roller. Playing with colors for me is the most direct way to find resonance with my feelings, my emotions, and with music, which I listen in the time when I am in my studio. Usually I take music which I think will help me with my creation. I love to paint not only on white surfaces of canvas or paper, but I like to take, for example, cardboard pieces, which are more brownish color, gray color. And sometimes surfaces of these cardboard pieces are printed with inscriptions, rasters, or logos of various brands. And if I find something interesting in this, I just cut a piece of this cardboard and start to play with colors. And then when the color composition is finished, I let it dry, or sometimes also I use it wet, and add my black ink and brush drawings with my typical motifs. Sometimes I have in my mind what I will draw, and sometimes I don't have. I just look colors and I think, what should be the best solution to draw on this background of colors. So I think with these lines, I am like a singer who sings song of poetry together with his maybe playing guitar or playing piano. So the abstract color compositions are like instrumental music, and the drawings, I feel they are somehow like songs or lyrics, and also dance, because drawing does not give only story to the picture, but also a dancing movement. I like movement. I often, in many projects, I collaborated with dancers of contemporary dance, and I was really impressed in the beginning how the dancers interpreted my images in movement, with movement. I gave them music which I listened while painting, but they created movement out of this music and out of my paintings. And so I think my lines are, in a way, my dance above this color fields. For my large commissions on canvas, I usually do some studies before, and if I find some story which would suit to someone who would like to have my work order or give commission to me. Story I do with drawing, first with pencil and then with brush ink drawings. I make many many variations. So in this way, I somehow fall into the story, fall into the figures, so that when I have to paint these lines on glass, I have this in my body, in the memory of my hand, in the memory of my mind. And then when I start to paint on white canvas, I often like to do some structure, some texture. I don't want just to paint to the canvas which I get in the shop, because these canvases are very, I would say, boring, just white structure. And so I like to add in the beginning some more structure, which I make with acrylic paint. And sometimes I add to this paint coffee. This I don't know.
Grains.
Yeah, grains of coffee, small, of course, coffee, or I make the dry tea leaves of the tea. I make them to dry and make grains of this, and I mix to the acrylic paint. So when I start to put colors, there is some kind of structure which is more natural, which looks more natural than just usual canvas from factory. And there is another way of my painting, which I call imaginations. So when I do maybe design for windows or large painting on canvas, I always use special papers which I use for mixing colors, or for like palette. I mix colors on them. I test colors, and when the day when I finish my work on the big painting, there I have these papers with different colors, and then I play with this. I maybe add some new color, or I take this painters. I just play with different, with pencils, with with brushes, with hand and spatula. And then I go home, and next day I come, and sometimes and often I find very interesting compositions, and then I imagine what to draw over these compositions, and often some very impressive images come out. And on that smaller imaginations, I get also some ideas for larger paintings after. So it's always combination of, like Kandinsky said, of improvisation and composition. When you compose larger works, it's more mental or rational work. It's more controlled work, but improvisation is more spontaneous. And so this is again, I'm looking for a kind of dialogue between these two poles of creativity.
And it's like a process, right?
It is process. It is process.
As you mentioned before, you said that your exhibitions are often accompanied by performances which are involving music, contemporary dance, or the recitals. As we heard before, you connect music with painting, and you're an extremely musical painter. The gesture of your drawing is like a dance move. It's like a movement when you do your painting. And you mentioned few of the contemporary musicians or singers who influenced you. And can you maybe tell me in what way, in your opinion, can a painter express music in his painting?
Yeah, music is sound, is the art of sound. Sound is wave or many waves. Music is like a combination of many different waves which are mixed and together in a very perplex way. And that's why also in some of my works I used the shapes of waving forms, not only rectangular or triangle or round, but also waving forms. This is one way of my expressing music. The other one is, of course, drawing with brush and with black lines. This is more near also to dance. And of course, the colors of paintings or even stained glass windows give a special vibration to the room or gallery room or to the church room. And this is also music because when you feel abstract forms or see abstract forms, you don't think about stories so much. If I would paint very realistic, then you see the picture, you see, oh, here is one man, another man, and here is, I don't know, and you don't feel the movement of colors and forms. So that's why I like abstract art, because it is more musical than figurative art. So figures in my compositions are just like lyrics which are added to the music. And also lyrics is not only words, but it's also the color of the voice of the singer. One of my favorite singers from my youth, which I still love, is Bob Dylan. And I was very happy or glad when I was 16, I met Andrej Schiffer, who is now for many years very famous singer. In that time, he was known only in our place where we lived, but he had a lot of records of Bob Dylan, and he was very glad that he can speak to me about his songs, and he lent me many of his records. And so it was again one, I would say, my school of music and poetry through to the discussions with Andrej Schiffer and also Alexander Mežek, who was his friend. So some years we spent some time together with very good discussions. It was time of when I was in grammar school still. Later, I must tell also some other musicians which inspired me very much. I mentioned Leonard Bernstein and his approach that all good music is good music. Doesn't matter which genre it is. If it is good, it is good. From Beethoven to Pink Floyd and the Beatles or jazz. I had many different, I would say, stages of my research of music. After I returned from Paris or around this time, I started to listen a lot to medieval music and music of Renaissance. This I thought was really something very different to pop music or rock music of that time. So I needed to find some alternative because I was really full of this music before. So some years I was studying this old music, ancient music. I liked very much medieval choral music, which is very simple, minimalistic music of monks or nuns. It was really meditative music, which also influenced me. And then later I discovered Claudio Monteverdi, whose music, especially his Vespers for the Blessed Virgin, which I found very erotic in the best way, because his erotic is open to transcendence as much as possible. So it was again a dialogue between what we experience here on earth in our relationships, and also open these relationships to divine dimensions. And of course, I have to mention Olivier Messiaen, French composer. I told you about before his love for stained glass windows, and his love, I have to mention his great love to birds, because he was also an ornithologist, and he went to different places in the world. He recorded songs of birds and then later translated this into his music. And this also fascinated me so much that I'm sure that my birds are my homage to his love to birds and to his music pieces, which are often connected with birds. And bird, of course, is a symbol of human soul, of spirit, and also of dance. Birds are dancing in the air. After Messiaen came some years of studying Astor Piazzolla and his tango music. I also made some paintings and imaginations on paper on the theme of tango. Because every music which I was listening gave to my painting maybe special direction and special forms came out of when I listened to special music. So I have to mention also Arvo Pärt, Estonian musician who created many beautiful sacred and also profane compositions, and American musician Philip Glass, which also impressed me very, very much with his meditative, repetitive music full of emotions and rhythm and visions. Yeah, every of this music is in a way written in my works.
It is very inspiring. The whole process, how you discovered music and how this influenced you and through your work, and it's a pleasure to listen to you. But as we must finish our conversation soon, I am quite interesting about something else. In one of the interviews, I saw that you very poetically compared Triglav or Slovenia to the sanctity and might of a Gothic cathedral. So I am curious, what role does Slovenia play in your work?
Yeah, this is true. I really can see my homeland as a great natural cathedral, which extends from the rocky Triglav down the large rivers and hills to the Adriatic Sea, which is, of course, part of a larger Mediterranean water basin. I was born and lived my youth in Kranj, a beautiful old town built on rocks above two canyons, which and surrounded by very large and flat fields which spread to Ljubljana and further on. These fields are surrounded by Karavanke, the line of rocky mountains. On the other side, to the west, there are hills which have very round forms. So when I look my native town, I see all forms of art are present. Triglav with triangles, and then also some Karavanke with triangles of rocky peaks and hills, mountains. And on the other side, Škofja Loka hills, which are more round, not rocky, and the flat area and the canyon below Kranj. So you have all from very deep to very high and very wide. And another inspiration of my country is Ljubljana, where I live since 1980, or even before when I was studying there. It is the town of where my father comes from. So where I had my grandmother. So Ljubljana was also very near to me from my early youth. Ljubljana is a more introvert city with a small river which goes around in curves around the castle hill. But again, Ljubljana is open to two fields. One is Barje, Ljubljansko Barje, and another one is the field of Sava, of River Sava. Again, it's open in two sides. The third important place of my country is Adriatic Sea and the coast, which is also very near to me because as a child, every year I went there with my parents to spend holidays from my just beginning of my life on. So maybe these 3 points of my native country. But of course, Slovenia is wider than these points which I mentioned. It's interesting that I have many works in Maribor, which is a little bit further from my native town. So also this Steierska with vineyards and also had some special impact in me. It's interesting, I mentioned in the beginning Marko Pogačnik. He also writes books, and one of his books speaks about miraculous Slovenia. He explains Slovenia in a way, maybe not like a cathedral, but like a sacred space, which is based on 3 lines coming from Triglav, the mountain with 3 tops. And he in a way tried to connect this vision with his vision of divinity, of goddess. So Slovenia he sees like an image of goddess which has 3 dimensions, which are somehow connected with Virgin Mary, with Christian iconography. So very interesting interpretations. I think we could talk about it even more.
Yeah.
But I think it's maybe enough.
It has Slovenia definitely has a special place, right? In every aspect of our work. And if we finish with Slovenia, let's talk about Slovenian art a little bit. How do you see it today? If we are specific, how do you see sacred art? What do you think describes it the most? What is the main thing that describes it? And in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge that Slovenian art is facing, and how do you envision its future?
This is not an easy question because I really don't follow it enough to be able to say something more specific. Also because I'm occupied with my creativity, and this is my central point of artistic research. And I often miss some contemporary exhibitions or art projects in Ljubljana or outside to Ljubljana. There is a lot of artistic creativity in many fields of art in Slovenia. The young generations are very creative, yes. I like to follow my colleagues, friends of my generation, and artists, musicians and dancers with whom I have collaborated in past. So when some friend invite me, I like to go if it's possible. When I follow contemporary art, I mostly seek the art which inspires me, in which I think I would get some new, fresh views or inspiration. So I cannot say about the whole, because there are many fields which I don't follow, maybe don't understand. It's another style or another, I don't know, spiritual mood. Sometimes I miss in contemporary art that it's maybe too much immanentistic approach, that art should want mostly be a mirror of our time and society, and don't speak maybe about personal life, about transcendental dimensions. I miss sometimes the openness of contemporary art to maybe universal human values, emotions, and visions. Picasso, for example, he was not painting just his time, but he showed to his time new visions through research of African masks. And later he went to Renaissance and started to paint very figurative works. And in the end, or in the last decades, when he was living at the Mediterranean coast, the Greek mythology came into his painting. So he was opening his time, the visions of his time. He was opening to other themes and other dimensions. Chagall, for example, opened modern art through meditation and interpretations of biblical stories and visions. So sometimes I miss this in contemporary art, that it is too much here and does not open the sky, or I don't know, maybe this can I say. You asked me also about sacred art. Slovenia has a tradition of sacred art from old ancient times, even from Roman times. You find in Emona, you find in ancient Ljubljana was Emona, you find mosaics from Christian buildings of worship. And then you have medieval frescoes, very beautiful frescoes in different churches in Slovenia. In modern time, in the time of 20th century, we had two very great artists. One is architect Jože Plečnik, and another one is painter Stane Kregar, who were the pioneers and founding fathers of Slovenian modern sacred art. For both in both of them we can find a special approach. They didn't create just sacred art; they created also so-called profane art. Even if I think art cannot be divided in sacred or profane, because all good art has elements of sacred, of something transcendental. For example, Kandinsky wrote about that. But there is some art who find its place in churches, and art who find its place in galleries and some other places, rooms. So Kregar and Plečnik created for all different kind of rooms and spaces. Their art was based in modern visual language, but they enriched this contemporary modern language with elements of ancient Christian art, which is characterized with artistic purity, almost minimalistic, as well as spiritual symbolism or stylized figurativeness. In the work of these two artists, I found a good basis for my way of contemporary Slovene sacred art. As I told you before, I don't see that sacred art should be illustration of biblical story, very direct illustration, but more in a more poetic way. Because in some of religious works in churches, I see mostly religious propaganda. It's not art, it's not meditation, but just ideology, if I'm a little bit critical. And today we are bombed with so many images, posters, reclam, advertisements. And so I think when we come to sacred place, we must not be bombed again with another, with another stories, with another ideology. But we need places of silence, of meditation, where we can concentrate. For example, if it would be only architecture, I think it's not enough for me, because architecture gives structure to the room. Plečnik, for example, and also Le Corbusier included in their architecture sculptures, and Le Corbusier also paintings, because paintings and sculptures give to architecture a more human dimension, give dimensions of stories, of colors. And I think the sculpture and painting painting should be in the religious room or sacred room should be like accent of something human. For me, the most important works, which are a kind of inspiration for my work, are the works of Le Corbusier. For example, his famous chapel in Ronchamp, or Henri Matisse in his chapel in Vence. Both of them, they designed it as a combination of architecture and painting, but the painting elements are minimalistic and give space to people who are there to meditate, to make a dialogue with these works, not to be just informed from the painters, but to have a dialogue with this work. So in this way, I tried in my work to establish such a dialogue with the room and also with people who come to the room. I think the sacred space must not be a big gallery or a movie canvas where people are bombed with many pictures, but a space for contemplation.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you more. I think today in our busy life, it is important to have a space where we can go and just meditate or contemplate and don't be bombarded with news or images like you said. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important, and it's a nice conclusion of our conversation for sure. So Matej, I think our time is up. Thank you very much for that reflection, for this very interesting conversation, your thoughts that you shared with us. And big thank you to our audience as well for joining us on this podcast. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. And I am looking forward to the next episode of Let's Talk About Slovenian Art. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tjaša, for inviting me. It was pleasure to me too to talk with you, to see how young historian of art is interested in my art, and I always like to share.
Thank you very much.